Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
And my guest is William SARUBBI, and we'll call him William J. SARUBBI II. He's a trial attorney with Senior Justice Law Firm. And it's interesting to have you, there's so much now on TV about lawyers,
Right.
and they're not the kind of lawyers that you are,
Right.
but you do something that's very, very helpful to people. Now, not everyone would believe that. If you're a nursing home administrator or you own an assisted living company,
Right.
you probably are not their favorite person.
Not at all.
But it doesn't have to be that way,
Right.
Will. If everybody does the right thing, they would really appreciate someone saying, "Oh, you're doing a good job. You don't need us." And I'm sure there are times when you are called and you see that it's just a figment of someone's imagination.
You're exactly right. And to give our viewers just an understanding, Anita, and thank you again for having me on today. Our practice, Senior Justice Law Firm, is dedicated our practice to victims of nursing home abuse, medical malpractice, and serious personal injuries. So you're right. During our course of experience, if you are a nursing home administrator or if you are a director of nursing, sometimes when you see our name on a letterhead, you may think, gosh, what are these guys doing? Is there something that I did wrong? We are dedicated to making sure that the rights that are enumerated with the Florida legislature for nursing home residents are upheld, and that's what we are dedicated our practice to, pursuing justice for victims of nursing home abuse.
It's interesting when you say that. I was thinking there must be enough of that for you to focus in on that particular specialty.
You're exactly right, and unfortunately, we see all too many times, so many cases here in the state of Florida. And I have some examples that I shared with our viewers last time. That today, what I want to focus in on is the theme of today is as we approach the holidays, and we are currently in the holidays. Unfortunately, some of the worst cases that we see happen at this exact time.
And why is that?
Tragedy typically strikes during the holidays because the whole theme goes back to whether or not the facility is appropriately staffed. It's called understaffing, as you might have heard that term of art. And what understaffing is the state of Florida is supposed to have a sufficient amount of caregivers in the facility, in the assisted living facilities. And without enough staff members, to care for the residents, to meet the needs of the residents, we often see preventable tragedies happening, such as falls, bed sores, and everything in between.
Yeah, I understand that. And so we have, we really do appreciate that there is an organization that really understands the ins and the outs of this, because there's a lot of ins and outs, I could tell you right now some stories, and I was thinking back as I knew you were coming on, thinking back about usually someone passes away and then their spouse is left, to fend for themselves, and then they get in a little trouble. They don't realize that what's happening to them is wrong. This one person wound up at I guess she was running fever, and the kids weren't around, and they wound up putting her in a rehabilitation center, and she was there, and she was going down. She was a perfectly fine person, other than her husband passing away, and she was emotional. She had a problem that they didn't take care of properly,
Right.
and she did go down, and eventually she died. Now, I jumped in while she wasn't having a really good time. I got a hold of her daughter in California.
Mm-hmm.
Her daughter was going to fly in. I saw some things that were wrong. Now, I didn't know you at the time, your organization. What should I have done if I felt that things were not right? What would I have done? Because I'm a stranger. Remember, I'm not the family member.
Right. This is a perfect classic example of what you can do during the holidays. We would like to refer to you as what's called a patient advocate. And although you may not be a loved one or connected to the resident at the nursing home facility, you can advocate for that individual if you believe that they've been a victim of abuse, whether it's a fall, whether it's a bed sore, or if you feel that they're just being mistreated, you can bring those concerns to the facility administrator, to the director of nursing.
I would.
You can certainly do that, but what would be probably best, if you really believe that there is abuse or mistreatment, you can call ACA, the Agency for Healthcare Administration, or the Department of Children and Families. Those are two government organizations that we have right here in Florida that are responsible for reviewing potential abuse inside the skilled nursing facilities. Those are things that you can do as someone who is not necessarily connected, maybe if you were a healthcare surrogate or a power of attorney. You can call the hotline that they have, and all it takes is for you to Google it, ACA healthcare line, or if you have a DCF hotline, you can actually call these organizations that have a duty to investigate what you saw at the facility.
So I wouldn't have gone directly to you because you have to be hired, don't you?
You can come directly to us. In fact, there's been a lot of times where we've helped families investigate potential abuse, and we found that although there may not be enough to file what's called a lawsuit or to seek damages for or recovery for something that happened inside the nursing home facility, we are here in the community to make sure that, thank God we don't have enough to file a lawsuit, but we can help those families get that resident out of the facility, get them in touch with a geriatric care manager, which we've discussed before on this show multiple times. And a geriatric care manager is someone who can remove that resident from a place of danger to a safer environment. And that's what we often do with several of our clients that call us seeking help and advice.
I see. So that's really, it's funny. I hadn't really thought about this thing. This happened probably 5-6 years ago. And I realized that she should not have passed away. And yet I didn't know quite what to do about it. It was like, I'm not her, I was a friend, but I was not her, family member. But I saw that, and then at the end, it did turn out that a lot of the things weren't right, but it was almost too late. And I don't think that year she came in from California, you can imagine, it's the same thing you're talking about. She didn't know what to do. She
Right.
should have gone after that rehab center.
Most likely. And what I could tell you, Anita, is that it's okay to have hesitations about calling a government agency or complaining about what happened inside a facility, because most of the times we don't want to blow the whistle, so to speak. We want to make sure that we give these trusted healthcare providers, the doctors that work in the facility, time to correct what's happening, but sometimes time is not always on our side, because if we can act and we can remove them from a facility and put them in a safer environment, because most likely if you're having those feelings of, gosh, I don't think that this is right, it's okay to pick up the phone, call our law firm, or pick up the phone and call the independent state agencies to investigate what is actually going on in the facility, just to make sure. And it's okay to do that, and that's why they're there. That's why we're here to help guide you through those steps.
Okay, so let's just talk now. You have so many testimonials.
Right.
I think that will help people really understand what you do.
Sure. So I have two classic examples of how we can prevent tragedy through this holiday period. First and foremost, we have a client in the first case that I'd like to talk with is a client, just as you mentioned, someone who was in a facility, was completely fine, just there for short-term rehabilitation, someone who needs supervision, but someone who is not necessarily, dying because they're there, they just need supervision. And unfortunately, during the holidays, you see the staff coming in and out because everyone is so focused in on the holidays, they're visiting with their families, and this should be a time where they should be able to do that. However, the owners of these skilled nursing facilities, assisted living facilities, simply just don't account for the amount of residents that they have during the holidays to make sure that there are enough eyes, ears, and attention that needs to be given to the residents in these facilities. In one case that we had here in a remote part of Florida, was a resident who just needed supervision. She was a fall risk. She had dementia, someone who was in that higher level of care at a nursing home that you would expect that the staff is there to watch her, to make sure that if anything were to happen, that they would be there to protect her. And we unfortunately got a call from a family that this resident was allowed to fall about 6 days before Christmas on the 19th. The call was to the family saying that everything is okay. Just mom took a fall, nothing to worry about. The family member, who is the daughter, is concerned, and she wanted to see it for her own two eyes if everything was okay. She says, and now we know because we have evidence to prove otherwise, that she looked like she had just stepped in the ring with a boxer.
Oh my goodness.
Battered and bruised.
Oh my goodness.
Someone who was not okay. That was the opposite of that. But even worse, Anita, what happens is the family trusted the family trusted the skilled nursing facility to correct those mistakes. But what happened was, we get to Christmas and there's not enough staff watching mom. And the next day after Christmas, what happens? A severe fall, causing her to be airlifted, trauma hawked, from a remote area in Florida to a hospital that could be equipped to handle a severe brain injury that she suffered because of the fall.
You're breaking my heart.
And unfortunately, a few days later, the doctors, after trying to operate, trying to save her life, said that unfortunately she is clinging to the last hours of her life, and she got in the hospital before the new year. And those are real life examples about what can happen during these times. And what we can do is making sure that if you have a loved one in a facility, that you're watching out for them and making sure that if they're telling you that mom's okay, it's important to make sure that you verify that everything's all right. And if you can visit. Or if you can't visit, have someone who's there nearby the facility to check in on them just for a wellness check. Those are things that can help prevent these tragedies from happening.
So let's move back to that particular place. What should they have done? Should they have shown the daughter a picture and said, this is what your mother looks like because this is what happened, but we want you to be aware of it and it's up to you. Do you want to come down? Or, I mean, should they have done more?
They absolutely should have done more, and what they should have done, Anita, is the truth is the most important thing. If mom is not okay, they need to be forthcoming, but oftentimes they like to sweep it under the rug. The family may not be close nearby, or they might be visiting with family members away from the facility, so it's not necessarily in their best interest to say, gosh, we did something wrong here. But what they should have done is they should have protected mom from the beginning, and a lot of things that could have been done at the beginning of her admission. Can we put proper fall precautions in there? Does she need extra one-on-one attention from our staff to make sure that this doesn't happen? But in fact, it's almost too late, and once the tragedy happens, time is not on their side.
Okay, but now, it did happen the first time. Shouldn't they then have more or less watched her like a hawk day and night?
Yes, they should have.
Because maybe she could have then survived after the trauma.
Right, and a lot of times in these cases, Anita, it's not about what happened, it's about what you failed to do afterwards. Because maybe the first fall, all we have is a couple of severe bruising, but nothing life-threatening. But what happened several days later is that catastrophic fall. And these are almost red flags. Red flags to remind us that maybe there should be something that needs to be done that's more than what we're providing right now. And that's where the facility, in our opinion, is negligent.
Yes.
And they need to be responsible for those actions.
Yeah, definitely. And let me also just tell everybody this is one smart lawyer, and he is so nice. I love having him on our show. His name is William SARUBBI II. He's a trial attorney with Senior Justice Law Firm. I love that name. It is so perfect for a firm that does something like this. Let me give you a phone number, though, so that you can make sure if you have anything like this now that you want some help. It's 561-717-0817. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. 717, well, it's 561-717-0817, or go to their website, which is seniorjustice.com. Seniorjustice.com. And this is a funny question to ask you, but if someone is not a senior yet, they're in 40s or 50s,
right,
can they still call you? Will you still help them?
Absolutely. And in fact, that's a great question, Nita, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because the other case that I wanted to discuss today happens to be someone who was not an elderly woman or an elderly man. It was someone who is coming off of a hip surgery that was actually in the facility, just there for short-term rehab. And what often happens is, whether you're 85 years old with a hip injury or 45 with a hip injury, you are reliant upon the staff to turn and reposition, to make sure that you're getting up out of bed, to make sure that you're getting the proper nutrition, hydration, everything that you need. Because although maybe someone who's 45 might be able to independently move themselves better than someone who's a little bit older, it doesn't negate the responsibility that the facility has for someone who is there for physical rehabilitation. And it's important to note that if you are 45 or 85 or somewhere in between, you could still get bed sores. And bed sores are wounds that happen because you are immobile for a long period of time. It implies that pressure. That's why it's called a pressure sore. And if you don't alleviate that pressure, it does not matter what your age is, you can absolutely have skin breakdown and suffer skin breakdown. And then once a skin tear happens or a significant wound opens, that horse is out of the barn, so to speak. It's almost impossible to reel it back in. So those are individuals that we can help as well. We do serious personal injury. We have serious medical malpractice cases that we are currently working on at the moment. I know Michael, my law partner, has over a decade of experience doing medical malpractice. But any client who is in a nursing home, a hospital, or anything in between, assisted living facility, regardless of the age, if they think that they have been mistreated or if they've suffered some sort of injury at the hands of a healthcare provider, we are here to help.
Well, it's so important, as you said. I think that South Florida, I don't know, I don't have the facts on this, probably has more communities, more nursing homes, more senior living communities than probably anywhere else in the country. Maybe California has more, but it seems like people came down here. They wanted the warm weather. They came down here with their spouse, and here they are. Now they're 20, 30 years older, and they're left to be by themselves. And once someone, I'm sure you've had the flu and you've had some serious illness. You don't know what's going on. You're out of it, and they're giving you medication. Okay, I'll take it. But an older adult, they can't recuperate as quickly. And you talked about, when anyone has anything done with their skin, their inflammation, everything doesn't work the same.
Right.
So it's got to be doubly watched.
Right.
And maybe they should have, anybody needs that kind of help, should have a little flag outside their door. and really a flag, how they now on the road, you have these things that...
An indicator.
An
Some
indicator.
sort of
Let's
flag.
have an indicator, and when someone goes in, the flag comes down. When they come out, the flag goes up.
Right.
They just need to know that person, because, you walk by the doors, you don't know who's in there, what's going on with them.
Right. And that brings up an interesting point, Anita, because what we look for in a nursing home, it's what's called acuity. Acuity is based on the level of care that you need. Someone who is 35 who just broke their hip may be immobile, that still needs the same turning and repositioning, but they're not as a high of acuity resident as, say, someone who's 85 with dementia that has no idea where they are.
Yeah.
And that particular resident, this resident number 2, would need more eyes, more attention. And unfortunately, these facilities are not staffing to what's called acuity. They're not providing enough eyes, ears, healthcare providers to make sure that the resident number 2 gets the attention that they need. If we're providing the same level of care, blanket level of care for every single resident in the facility, we're not doing our jobs. And I know that the lawyers at my law firm have dedicated their practice to making sure that we're raising that standard of care, because that's what we believe is right. And not every nursing home or hospital is negligent. They're not. There are a lot of great care providers here in the community, so I don't want to give our viewers the impression that we're out just for blood on every single case. But some of the cases that, as I shared with you right here, they're clear-cut, preventable tragedies that can be prevented with education. And if there's someone that's listening to us today that would be able to prevent a tragedy like this, then it's worth everything.
No, absolutely. Well, this is why, because we have advertisers who, of course, have nursing homes and have other senior facilities, and I like your company because you are so straight and honest, and I said this when you all of you start coming on. Let's just do this so that it makes people, these companies, more aware of what they should be doing. And you haven't been talking about the home health agencies, and they're very important, because it's the same kind of a thing, that you've hired a home health agency,
Right.
and you expect them to take care of the patient.
Right.
And if they don't, my mother, I actually had someone there, and my mother slipped and broke her hip, but and the person was with her.
Right.
But these things happen, and so it's very hard, and that's your problem, though. Very hard to prove what really happened, so isn't it?
It is, but we need to make sure that when we hire someone that we're thoroughly investigating their background, what they're actually going to be offered, because a lot of these cases are built on broken promises. I can do this. I can take care of mom. I can do this. And then unfortunately you trust and you accept that promise to be kept. and then you find out, similar to a lot of our clients, that those cases are in fact the entire opposite. It's a case of broken promises that were not fulfilled, that could never have been fulfilled from the beginning because someone is relying on those promises. So whether it's a home health care agency, everyone likes to be home, especially around the holidays. If I can be in a facility or if I could be in the comfort of my own home, most people I would believe would pick their home. They would like to be home. There's something comforting about a home versus, say, a facility. But it's important to note that if you're going to take that option, the home health care route, to make sure that you investigate, to ask questions, to make sure that your loved one or yourself included can be taken care of during the holidays, because when you need attention, you need it at that exact time. You can't have it 2, 3, 4, or 5 days later, or if you need assistance to go to the restroom. All it takes is for a fall to happen on the way there, and it's hard to unreel that back in.
No, everything you're saying is absolutely true. And I don't know if I said it with you, but originally nursing homes were nursing homes. And then people didn't occupy them as much.
Right.
And they turned them into rehab centers. And hopefully and I know a lot of great rehab centers, but rehab centers consist of employees.
Right.
And it's the employee. It isn't even the owner. Many times the owners are great, but somehow the employee is unhappy. They're not doing their job. So it requires the staffing, the people who are in charge,
Right.
to make sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to do.
Exactly right. It's about quality, not quantity. And
Yeah.
I know we talk about numbers, but if we have quality caregivers that are doing their jobs, that are passionate about caring for the loved ones that are in there, I can assure you that less tragedies would happen. But unfortunately, I think that this is more of a profits over people situation that we run into so much, because we have facility owners that are not necessarily independently owned and operated. They are chains of nursing homes. I know that one in particular, the last case that I was going to discuss today, is another remote facility in the north part of Florida. This resident broke her hip inside the facility, so now she's immobile. But what they were dealing with, and the family had found this out the hard way, is that there was an infestation of insects in the facility.
No way. I've never heard of this.
You can't make this up, Anita. It's one of our unique cases, but also one of our most tragic cases. And for these reasons, because now we have a resident who is stuck in bed, who needs to be watched and taken out of, watched closely. And in this particular case, there were ants, red ants, that came into her bed. And unfortunately, we can leave the rest to the imagination, which is unfortunate. She suffered severe wounds because of the ant bites that she was unfortunately subjected to, because she was left in bed for such a long time.
I mean, I have sitting here with my mouth open. See, so you really are seeing it all.
Yes.
Let me just give you some more information again. I would really suggest that you have a little notebook and you put a lot of the numbers we give you, just like we talked about Mark Morowitz last time. You need to have these names so when something happens, you'll never remember it or know what to do. So we're very pleased to have one of the lawyers from the Senior Justice Law Firm, and Williams SARUBBI, the second, a trial attorney with Senior Justice Law Firm. He's very smart, and you can just hear in his tone, he's very compassionate. Sometimes lawyers get a bad shake here because, but when you need one, you really need the best one you can find.
Right.
And since you specialize in this, which is really great, it's not like you're taking care of everything all the time.
Right.
And I said this, I think I asked you or one of your partners previously, it must be very difficult to get the information you need to be able to have a lawsuit.
You're exactly right. And thank you so much for the kind words, Anita. I really appreciate you having me on here, and I know that Michael and David, my law partners, love the opportunity to come on here and to talk with you and Marilyn and everyone here and our viewers, to make sure that we can educate the general public about what we do here. And that's all that we do, is nursing home litigation. I talked about the medical malpractice and the serious personal injury, because we handle those as well, but our focus is definitely on nursing homes. But it takes a lot of manpower and team effort back at Senior Justice to get all of the information that we need to file a lawsuit. There is a pre-suit period. There's so many little nuances and laws that you have to abide by. And if you have one hiccup along the way, the defense firm, the facility that typically hires those high-powered corporate defense firms, they will find a loophole to make sure that they put just one more obstacle or barrier in your way to pursuing justice for your loved one.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I can picture it now. So when you go there, when you go and you face them, you face the institution, you really have to know what you're doing. You have to have all the facts, and you have to be pretty sure, because you're right. And I guess photographs, I was thinking about caregivers. They should really go with their camera. Everyone has a camera now.
Right.
When you see something wrong, take a picture, right? Let's see if we can, take a picture and make sure that what you're seeing isn't just in your mind. Take the picture and then talk about it later, because pictures don't lie. It's like with the red ant bites. I mean, that would have been obvious, right?
You're exactly right, and we did end up getting several photos from that particular case, and that was a linchpin in why we're able to do what we're doing today.
Well, let me give you their phone number again. That way you can keep that, please. It's 561-717-0817. 561-717-0817, or go to their website, seniorjustice.com. Well, it's just wonderful having you on our show.
Thank you so much, Anita.
And I hope it's helped people. I hope it gives them confidence to know, what to do. And it's great having you come, because you're very smooth, and I always learn when you're here.
Thank you so much, and happy holidays to you and to the viewers.
Yeah, thank you. Same to you.
I appreciate it.
Beautiful.